Optimized here. The last few Onepunchman chapters have been amazing. The action and everything has been top tier. If you did not see my video on chapters 166 and 167, I would highly suggest you watch it for context. Today I'm going to be going over chapters 168 and 169. At the end of the video, I'm going to be addressing arguments from the comment section of my last video. If you are interested in power scaling or philosophy, I would suggest subscribing because that's all I do on this channel. Let's start with chapter 168. It starts with Saitama beating the crap out of Garo. Garo is copying Saitama, and Saitama is growing too fast for him to keep up. This is what the limitless statement and the broken limiter statement are referring to. Saitama has limitless growth. Saitama grows exponentially. Unlike a normal person, his growth does not slow down. Garo was the only person who could show this because he is the only person who could hold a candle to him with his copy ability. Saitama became so strong during this fight, he was casually mopping the floor with Garo. Saitama became disinterested again and started sneezing away the surface of Jupiter to reveal the core. Garo then tries to escape back to Earth, and Saitama follows behind with a fart. Saitama punches him back down to Earth, and Garo sees Taro dead. I don't know how his name is pronounced. He then realizes he screwed up and wants to fix what he did. He asks Saitama to mimic his ability to go back in time. Saitama does this, and Garo dies as a result of God taking his powers. Saitama then goes back in time to the point where Garo just appears in his cosmic form and one-taps him because of the power he gained while fighting Garo. He then fuses with his past self. Now on to chapter 169. Saitama was still holding the core but had no memories of what had happened. But when Genos connected to it, he remembered. Genos then goes on a rant about time travel and how Saitama did it. Garo then lets himself get beat up as he lost his powers until Taro steps in and King tells them to stop. Garo then jumps into the air to run away, speed blitzing everyone there except Saitama. That is the end of the chapter from a power scaling perspective. Now what does this all mean? At first glance, this seems like it supports Saitama being a gag character. But when you look closer, he's still not. The definition of a gag character is: a gag character is usually a character that is rarely used and shows no personality except for the joke in a comic strip or TV show. Often a gag character's usage is only for one joke. A simplified definition would be a character used for a joke that shows no personality outside of the joke. Saitama shows personality outside of him one-tapping people. For example, Saitama got mad at Garo. Saitama twitched at the prospect of a good fight. Saitama pitied Boros. Saitama did not kill Garo for Taro. And Saitama was interested in martial arts. Now, I don't think that this is what most people mean when they say gag character. I think when most people use it in Saitama's case, they mean a character whose narrative makes them do something for the sake of a joke. I'm going to take this one step down and say Saitama's narrative is to one-tap people. The thing is, this is irrelevant to scaling because if the only requirement is Saitama one-taps people, then the narrative can do stuff such as weakening the opponent or making Saitama stronger and making Saitama go back in time just to one-tap them. The thing is, if they make everyone weaker just so he can one-tap them, then Saitama could just be one of the weakest characters in fiction just as long as he can one-tap everyone in his verse. You have to remember One and Murata do not have narrative control over other verses. Now that we got all that out of the way, let's move on to the limitless arguments. When Garo says Saitama is limitless, he is referring to his growth as shown in the latest chapter, and when Dr. Gina says Saitama has removed his limiter, he is referring to growth. Onepunchman chapter 88. No matter how much power one puts in, every living being has a limit to their own growth. Too much power becomes unbearable and overwhelms its own host, turning into a mindless, rampaging monster. To ensure that we do not enter the realm where we lose all purpose and ability to reason, God has set limits to the growth of every being. The mechanism in which growth is controlled is called the limiter. Simply put, Saitama's growth is unlimited, not his power. Now let's talk about Saitama traveling back in time. Does Saitama have a measurable speed? Well, it depends on how you interpret what he did. First of all, we know that Saitama copied Garo's ability. Using an ability to travel back in time does not innately give you an accessible speed, but it does give you a hacks that could be interpreted as temporal manipulation. If you think that Saitama did this through pure speed, then he still might not have an accessible speed, because during Genos' rant he starts talking about general relativity, which under that model you would only have to go faster than light to go back in time. It depends on how Saitama traveled back in time, so I will leave this one up to you guys. Now onto the arguments in the comment section. First of all, Saitama was not fighting with killing intent, but that does not mean he was not trying at the beginning. You can try without killing intent. An example would be a boxer. Another thing that was brought up was One and Murata's statements on Saitama being a gag character. As I said earlier, by definition, he would not be, and them saying that does not change that fact. For example, let's say I make a character that has blue skin. Then I make a statement that this character has red skin. Is this character just red now? This is all assuming that this is what One and Murata even meant by him being a gag character. They could have just meant a comedy character. As for Saitama being multi-galaxy level, this could be correct and is actually more than likely correct. I was just lowballing as we did not blatantly see galaxies being destroyed. A lot of other arguments were just semantics about removing versus breaking, which is kind of irrelevant now. If you have any other questions or arguments, don't hesitate to comment them down below. I like debating and I will try to get back to you. This might be my last video on Onepunchman for a while, or at least until some crazy stuff goes down. I might make a video over Saitama as a whole, but that won't come out for a while. If you enjoyed the video, all I do on this channel is Powerscaleing and philosophy. Check out my past video on chapters 166 and 167 if you are curious about my take on his past feats. This was Optimized, and I will see you in the next video.